No. I mean, I was thinking 7 hours. I mean, honestly, in my head, I was like, all right, guys are totally blowing this out of proportion, and we're talking to Alex Candelario, which you probably saw in the documentary.
Yeah.
And Alex, I mean, the guy's silver medal at Road National Championships and Olympic caliber cyclist. And he's like, oh yeah, it should take like 12 hours. And I'm like, dude, you are so just janking our chain, There's just no way that a 60-mile ride is going to take us 12 hours. I mean, we're not walking. Well, let's just say there's some things that really became crystal clear about this thing and started to make a hell of a lot of sense. And it's just insane. Cool. So I guess we're having coffee together. It's pretty good. I got my Rocktown Ranch mug. A friend of mine owns a sort of a bike touring center. We do this yearly retreat to the Rocktown Ranch, which is this bike cabin place at 3,000 feet up in West Virginia. And a friend of mine who's an old courier runs this bike camp. And usually the pros in Virginia will all congregate. We normally don't see each other a whole lot because of busy season, but Ben King, Joe Dombrowski, and Tim Rugg, and Eddie Anderson's been there, Brian Lewis, Keck Baker, Gordon Wadsworth, some of the other mountain bike guys, and we get together, and Jay's wife, Audrey, makes these mugs, and she also makes t-shirts for each year, and yeah, it's kind of my favorite mug of all time. It's like handmade.
So yeah, we are catching you in the morning. Have you already gotten a 5-hour training session in and coming?
Oh no, I actually slept in for a change. I'm surprisingly polar as far as my mornings. Like I'm either like up at 5 in the morning or 4:30 in the morning, in the car or off to the airport or training, or like if it's a chill day, then yeah, I'll relax and sleep in, enjoy sitting on the back porch, and yeah, I've learned to be able to turn it off sometimes.
So with the quarantine, how are you adapting your 2020 season with everything that's going on?
Well, I definitely have a little bit more spare time. I'm not flying somewhere or driving long distances. Usually we're leaving for a demo in Florida.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, all right, yeah, meet me at my house at 4:30. We'll load up the Sprinter and, be on the road by 6. And, it's a little bit less to that. And a little bit more of Zwift. We've been doing World's Volcano. I invited Vegan Cyclist to go and climb that a few weeks ago, and he just released a video. It's called The Impossible Hill Climb.
Yeah.
And it's awesome.
I actually watched your video last night.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Cool.
That was...
It was amateur level editing, but...
it got the point across for sure, yeah.
Yeah, it just kind of tells some of the backstory. His is going to be a lot more entertaining, a lot better developed, and it's kind of like when you've got a film project and you've got like Scorsese, or I don't know, you've got like pro. I'm like, yeah, I know my video is going to suck compared to his, but I can ride my bike and he can, he can try to keep up with me on the bike, and it's just not going to happen. So it's kind of the same thing.
Sure.
When you
like the creative
talking about,
I really do.
When you were talking about that 13% grade as your one hand on the handlebars, of course.
I got good balance. Been riding for a long time, and yeah, practicing yeah, riding with no hands, riding track stands, stuff like that has actually helped. I have not crashed with a camera in my hand yet. I'm sure it's going to happen, but glad it hasn't happened yet.
So when you were doing that, what kind of camera were you using, and did you have like a mount, or were you just straight up holding a GoPro in your hand?
I actually shot. It's interesting because I had this new GoPro 8 Black, which is incredible, but the battery ran out. And I'm an amateur. I'm a hack when it comes to like videography. I didn't know you're supposed to have backup batteries. Vegan Cyclist pulls out this bag and it's got like different kinds of gimbals. He's got 2 drones. It's like, yeah, well, I use this one for like the follow, and then this one is a little lighter, so it's better in the wind. I'm like, dude, I got this camera I just got, and then the other one that I actually really like shooting with, just because it's so small, is this Session. So the Session is super cool because you just have that like button on the top. They discontinued it, which is a bugger, but really glad I got it, because the touchscreen too with the gloves is really tricky. You're like trying to swipe and stuff, and this one I just have the audio recording, GoPro start recording, and then it'll record while I'm actually riding, which is super cool. And the shot quality is pretty good. It's got image stabilization. This bigger camera, I mean, you can do stills a little bit better. You can change like the shot width and things like that a little bit better. But yeah, man, it's I'm using like a head strap for my chest cam. That's kind of like how basic, my setup is. But
so in terms of just that Volcano Ride itself, I don't remember if it was your Strava title or Tyler's Strava title about like it's impossible. It was like impossible, or was one of the hardest rides you've ever done. Was that hyperbole, or was it actually one of the hardest climbs or rides that you've ever?
100%. Without hesitation. Yeah, I mean, when you do something, so I was hoping to do the official like world's hardest hill climb, because I'm on Strava and people really look at that, and I'm like, well, I know my form is good, and I know that if I do this segment, if I have a good run at it, I have a very good likelihood of getting this Strava segment. The guy took it as a pro track racer, very, very solid Olympic rider, but he's also not a climber. I'm really good at the high elevation stuff, and so I'm thinking like, okay, well, we can do that, or we can do the longer one, and then once we get to this like last 2 hours of the climb, I'll go really hard and see if I can take the upper half. If I can take the upper segment, then then I could prove that if I wanted to, I could have taken the other segment. But dude, by the time I got there, I mean, I was like just smashed, and all I could think about was trying to keep moving. And I picked it up a little bit, like at 9,000 to 10,000 feet. Like I, kind of started to drive the pace and give it a good hard push, but just couldn't I couldn't go any harder. I mean, I was just pegged, just trying to keep the gear turning. Like,
did you guys do this at the beginning of the vacation or at the end?
Yeah. Well, it was actually the middle. It was the middle. Not a stranger to planning these big trips, and the jet lag's a big factor. Yeah, it was kind of crazy. We were only in Hawaii for a week, and we were on Kauai with family, and my wife, she was not too happy about me leaving.
I was wondering how that went.
Oh, it did not go really well. Especially, I thought I was going to be able to take an Uber, and there's no Uber in Kauai that would pick me up to get to the airport to do this like puddle jumper flight to Honolulu, and then Honolulu to the Big Island. And I was like, I'm gonna have to take the rental car. So I'm leaving her there with no rental car.
Oh no.
So it did not go well. I actually would have a good reality TV like YouTube if I could record that interaction. But let's just say it wasn't pretty.
So it took you about 9.5 hours to do the climb itself?
Yeah, the actual elapsed time was like 9:38 or something like that. I had to do the math on it because the Garmin I was running died. These things, if you're running navigation on them, don't last super long. And I guess maybe, I saw it was 90% charge, or I don't know. I mean, there's so much stuff to figure out when you're like charging your lights, you're charging your, GoPros, you're charging your Garmin's, your phones. So a lot of stuff to be on top of. And, I think, that was one of the things that, I didn't think, okay, well, what if this takes, 9 to 12 hours? And when you add the navigation, that's what killed it, was the navigation.
Yeah. What was the time that you guys were kind of shooting for? Were you thinking kind of that similar time frame of 9.5 hours, or were you kind of planning?
No. I mean, I was thinking 7 hours. I mean, honestly, in my head, I was like, all right, I are totally blowing this out of proportion, and we're talking to Alex Candelario, which you probably saw in the documentary.
Yeah.
And Alex, I mean, the guy's silver medal at road national championships and Olympic caliber cyclist. And he's like, oh yeah, it should take like 12 hours. And I'm like, dude, you are so just janking our chain, There's just no way that a 60-mile ride is going to take us 12 hours. I mean, we're not walking. Well, let's just say there's some things that really became crystal clear about this thing and started to make a hell of a lot of sense. I mean, it's just insane. Yeah, I mean, you wouldn't believe it, Trevor. We hit like this first pitch, and I've not since Costa Rica. There's only one other place in the world, and I race mountain bikes. So when you race mountain bikes, you will climb stuff that is just more mind-boggling. Racing in the Alps, the Pyrenees, in Costa Rica, you'll climb stuff that they won't pave. There's just logging roads and just like wicked steep stuff. So usually I really, usually dig the steep stuff. I have no problem with it. But this was ridiculous. I mean, the pitches of 40%. I mean, you put a suitcase on it and it just starts to slide down the hill type of pitch. And you know how video doesn't do it justice.
Oh,
and even in the video, it did look steep. It actually did look steep in the video.
Yeah.
I was pretty flabbergasted because we descended it in the dark, and all you see is Alex engages the four-wheel drive. You see all these like scratch marks on the guardrail, and I'm like, the ground is like scraped up on the switchbacks from the bottoms of cars, and the pavement's really, really rough. And I'm on like a 40C. I'm running like these 40C, what do you call them? Schwalbe G1s, and I'm like slipping out. I'm running a knobby 40C tire, and like the rear wheels like spinning on the concrete. I mean, it's a rough way to start a big climb like that. And then we got into the sort of jungle section, so very, very slow going. And you have sort of these challenges, like these hurdles. And I think Vegan Cyclist, his video is really good at breaking it down. He kind of had these graphics for each section. He should have had Embarrassment Beach as the first one, though. I think he kind of missed that one where he falls over in the sand. Sorry, Tyler. It was really, really funny. But then, you have the Waipio Valley climb. Then you've got a flat section of pavement, where it's 2%, no big deal. But you're going and going and going. Then you've got the that jungle, and then you've got the grasslands, and then you've got the rubble, which is almost like a single track, like a double track Jeep road with all these like big rocks in it, which comes out really well. It does convey actually pretty well in the video. And then you've got the volcanic area where it's like above tree line. It's all like blackened and orange, and just really like freaky lunar landscape. But the thing, to your point, Trevor, about how this thing really accumulates, you know, and I started to think about it a little bit, like in the week coming up to it. And I was like, wow, you know, running it like full gas, like, you know, averaging 265 watts at Leadville, like for 6 hours. I mean, that's like the record, all-time record at Leadville. And within a couple minutes of that, yeah, I mean, that's really hard. I mean, you're just completely destroyed and you fall over in the grass afterward and have to recover because you're just, your tank is so empty. And then you add like Pikes Peak hill climb to that. And that's what you're looking at when you finish. I mean, when I turned that corner and you looked up and you could just see the switchbacks and the snow cap just like 2 hours, you know, up the hill. I mean, that is a mind bender. I mean, you turn that corner, you feel like you just finished Leadville 100 and you turn the corner and you look up and you go, your just heart sinks and you're like, it's going to be rough.
So obviously you're still riding strong and your fitness is strong. But your career as a cyclist has kind of developed and changed a little bit. You put in quite an impressive time as a racer and a rider, and I know that you do coaching, and now you're an ambassador. Do you see your role as a cyclist fundamentally different in those roles, or is it kind of philosophically, do you see it kind of all the same, or approaching it the same way?
I'm approaching it the same way as I have for the last 5 years. I mean, the racing was, you know, such a big part of my life for so long that I had the World Cup racing career. And yeah, I mean, we would have interviews or interact with media, and having social presence and reaching the fans was important.
Sure.
And then I turned into ultra endurance racing, and that's a little bit more like sharing the adventure for the sport of mountain biking. And then now as an ambassador for Canyon, able to tell the stories, I'm able to do the races, getting people excited about long rides and adventure. I'm also doing advocacy work, things like Love Trails, which is a micro donation app for people with cell phones that want to donate when they're out on the road, traveling to races and things like that, to local trail groups. And yeah, just like staying involved in sharing stoke for the sport. And I think that really, because that's always been a part of what I do, Canyon appreciates the value of, you know, the authenticity of it. You know, it's just something I do and believe in. And, you know, if I wasn't working for Canyon tomorrow, then I'd be doing the same thing. I mean, I'd be trying to make ends meet, but yeah, I'd be doing the same thing. I'd be, you know, creating routes, hosting the Alpine Loop Gran Fondo, you know, or hosting a mountain bike race, doing videos, you know, and that's just part of what I do.
Where does the obviously motivation when you are looking toward a race or a huge endurance event, the motivation is obvious, competing, finishing. But where's the motivation as you are an ambassador, as you said, spreading the stoke of cycling? What gives you that motivation?
When I see people smile, I want to see people try something new or start riding or get involved with trail work. I mean, those things are really awesome. And, you know, the things that I'm most proud about are getting kids into riding. Like we have the Virginia High School Mountain Bike Association in the spring. Then NICA we have in the fall. I've been helping a little bit just to cheerlead those efforts, and I'll show up at races and things like that, ride with the kids. Yeah, those are the things I'm most proud of, honestly. You know, the races I'm very proud of as well, but it's kind of a different feeling, you know? It's like, you know, it's just kind of a different dimension to it. But yeah, I enjoy that part of it. That's a motivator. Obviously, you know, this time period with coronavirus and things shutting down as far as events go, it's a big challenge because most of the fun that I get out of it now is like attending races or going to demos and trying to interact with people through a regular Zwift ride was one of the goals that I had actually before this. I was like, well, maybe I'll do like a Monday or, something that's consistent. And so that's what I'm doing. I'm doing a Monday open Zwift ride. It's a totally social ride. It's a coffee ride. So it's with Team Dirt. So dads who ride inside riding trainers is what it stands for. Kind of an acronym. But this group has grown. I mean, there's a surprising number of dads that are on Zwift. They've got regular 9-to-5 job. They are super time crunched. And when they get off of work, they're, with their kids, taking their kids to soccer, doing whatever. And so their time to like load up the stuff and drive to the trailhead and ride is really limited. So, that's kind of like the Friday to Sunday routine. And then, they do this like series of Zwift rides. Some are hard, some are easy. So Monday, 6:15 a.m., I'll be doing the Monday Blues ride for Team Dirt. So I'm a guest there. I'll have my headphones on and I'll be on Discord and we'll be chatting and just talking and
nice.
Kind of just hanging out, chatting up bikes, talking about beer, talking about,
the important stuff in life.
Yeah, the important stuff, people need a good distraction. So it's really neat. We've got these tools in place. And, there'll be negatives, of course, with this thing, but there will also be positives. But we can hop on Zwift, chat, talk. And I mean, like chatting with you guys now is just, it's so cool that we can do this type of stuff. And it keeps us connected. I think it's an important, sorry, my Garmin's beeping at me. I've got this little wristwatch Garmin.
Oh, yeah.
Kind of yelping. So it's super important, I think, just to stay connected. So I'm going to do the Monday ride. I'm doing the Thursday ride. We've got a Gravelers ride with Peter Stetna, which is East Coast is 10 a.m. So it's a 45-minute ride at 10 a.m. That one's a little bit more of an endurance pace. I got on there and I was like just clipping in and kind of tightening my shoes, and everybody kind of takes off. Like, all right, okay. It's a little faster than recovery pace, but I've gotten to learn, like you got to chill it out. So the rides I've been doing on Zwift are either like chill, endurance, and then like full nuclear. So I did the Vegan Cyclist 100-mile ride the day before yesterday. I'm still feeling it. Like I was dying. I mean, they averaged 25.5 miles per hour, 26 miles per hour.
Oh my God.
Like this ride. So, I mean, it's a little bit faster than real outside, but literally it felt like trying to hold 4-hour century pace. I mean, it was crazy fast. So I'm trying to, do a consistent ride per week. So catch up with me. I'll have the plan for next week's race figured out by end of today, and then I'll make a post about it just so you can watch or tune in.
I mean, I think it's interesting. You were talking just in terms of connection, and that we can still find ways to connect with each other despite being disconnected, and how that is motivating in itself, staying connected in creative ways. Are you still coaching? And I'm wondering how you're trying to share this motivation or motivate your athletes and stay connected to them. Is it through things like Zwift or through video conferencing? Or
I have a company, Bishop Training. Still kind of doing the same as I always have done. The real difficulty, Trevor, as you were talking about, is athletes, we're so motivated by the events. If you've got Gran Fondo, New York coming up in 3 weeks, dude, you are like stoked. Or if you've got Transylvania Epic, got my little TSE trophy from last year.
Awesome.
Yeah. So
that's so cool.
Yeah. Kind of like this Pennsylvania cherry.
Yeah.
But if you've got an event like this coming up, I mean, it's super easy just to like hunker down and throw some serious quality. That's how I really motivated, is break it down into blocks coming into each of these things. But that theory applies even with sub goals. So let's say, Sheldon, what's your best FTP of the year? Usually.
I don't want to talk about this year. Well, maybe we'll talk ever.
Ever, all time.
It would have been 395.
Awesome. It's really high. Yeah. So if you look at the difference between where you are and where you were then, I mean, those things can become goals. And what's interesting is if you sort of break it down and say, all right, well, hopefully we'll be doing some races by the end of the summer. And then regardless, I'm going to try to go for my course PR on the Big Bear Loop or on the Shenandoah Mountain Trail. So if there's no racing, then I'm going to go out and I'm going to do my hardcore 4-hour ride as fast as I can and see if I can break that time. Well, then you can create really good benchmarks coming into that. And then, you might have a hill climb that you do your test on, or, a stretch of road that you do your test on, or, some kind of sub goals. I've got Shenandoah Mountain Trail I'd like to do. I've got the ring, Massanutten Ring, which is on the dirty to-do list. And, those things are kind of filling in for now. I'd like to win a Zwift race. But yeah, I mean, you can still build to your best. The thing is, when you're trying to beat other people in a race, it's a lot more immediate feedback. You know what I'm saying? But if you went out and you did 400 watts for 20 minutes, for your best ever FTP, you would feel that
Sure.
puts you in a very, very small club of the fittest, riders in the world that can do that.
Oh, to be clear, I was talking 3.95 watts per kilogram.
Okay.
It was not a 400 watt.
Okay. I thought you said 395. I was like, holy crap, this guy's fast.
Thank you. Sheldon, I'm so glad you said that, because I was like, you are a lying son of a bitch, man.
I said it, and then I was like, that sounded wrong. No, 3.95 watts per kilogram.
Yeah, which is still very good, by the way. But I was like, dang, this guy better, we better we gotta sign him.
That's great.
Well,
So-
I mean, it's all relative. It's about doing your own thing. And one of the goals that I have, I know it sounds silly, is to do a manual. And I am so close at age 44 to doing a manual. I've got it down to 15 feet, but I want to be able to ride it all the way down the block.
That's awesome.
I know it sounds like a silly goal, but guess what? I'm totally fired up about this. It's going to happen.
This
If
is the
I-
time to put in the time for it, though, right?
I got the time for that.
Yeah.
Other things I have the time for. One of the things that I feel like a mountain biker, it's important to do trail work once a month. But I was so busy working, you get home from a demo and then you're so tired from loading the truck, unloading the truck. You've got tent weights, each one's 30 pounds. You drive your tail off, and then you get home, you unload everything, and you're reaching bikes and they're, in really weird places, and you're just exhausted. I mean, it feels like CrossFit for an hour each side of the trip. And then you have to train the next day, and, going to the gym already to do some very specific work. Yeah, the trail work was the last thing. And so I haven't gotten around to that. So I'm going to do some trail work today. And, what are your motivators? And tap into your motivators to give you that little extra oomph, for the training. And so the next time, I'm out there, I'm going to be thinking about trying to finish the Massanutten Ring. I'll be out there training. I'll be like, okay, well, I'm going to push and just keep it going, and it's not really, it's not going to last forever. This is going to be a period in history, and we're going to get through it. But I think there will be some precautions for quite long time, but I think we will be able to have some forms of races. We might have mountain bike races that are time trials in the end of the summer. We might have more Zwift races, but there will be some racing, trust me. And the people who stay in shape for it are going to be so glad, because when the races start again, it's going to be like popcorn popping. It's going to be so fun. And I can't wait to get back to racing. I mean, it's the best. It's so awesome. Campfires afterward, beer, Shenandoah 100. It's just, that's the stuff I live for. So gotta just make it, make it back to that.
So I know the question that a lot of Midwesterners probably are having was, in your original plan for the season, was Margie in the cards?
The Margie was on my schedule actually this year.
Really?
And I, again, have a love-hate relationship with that race.
Most people do.
Things that I actually like the trails there a lot. The trails are awesome. The thing with the Margie Gesek is, like a lot of other ultra endurance challenges, you crush yourself pretty hard. I mean, it's really, really hard. So it's kind of one of those things that you're like, oh boy, it's gonna hurt. And you can think about it a lot as it gets closer,
What do Danny and Todd have in store for you this year?
Oh, geez. I don't know. It's a good question. I think they, as they build more good trail there, the trail is just always slightly different. They route it a little bit different, or they add a little more single track. And they're stoked about adding single track. And I'm usually stoked about adding single track, but that race is just going to get even harder if they add much more single track to it. But yeah, it's a super cool place, and I really love the lake. It's like an inland ocean. The rocks in the lake. It's really a beautiful place. I didn't expect it to be, such a highlight. But to what you were saying, Trevor, I think the other thing is absence makes the heart grow stronger. The love of racing right now. If you spend any time racing or going back, in your mind through the pictures of racing that you did in the past, I mean, right now, I kind of really forgot that I had this, kind of sitting in a box next to my computer, but I've got my Leadville belt buckle.
Nice.
Ooh.
And
what year was that one?
It wasn't last year because it was the 25th. So I think this is the 24th. So 2018. I'm trying to think which year I skipped it. So I think this was 2018. Okay. But not being able to race, I mean, really makes you appreciate how cool it is and how awesome these things are. And so I think we'll see a lot of people who are really fired up. The other thing that's a strange phenomenon, I don't know if you guys noticed this there, and I'm going to have to ask the guys at Strava, but it seems like more people are riding bikes. I mean, just like normal people. I've never seen this many people like on the $800 mountain bike just cruising, like smiling and enjoying spring.
Well, I went out yesterday and I started, like, half the ride was on the road and then half the ride was kind of on this long paved river trail. I hit this paved river trail and it was like Iceman last year. I mean, since Iceman, I don't think I've said on your left so many times. And it was, people walking their dogs, people out on, like you said, these $800, their Walmart bikes. There were just people everywhere. And it was like, we're trying to be social distancing, especially up in here in Michigan. I don't know how it is down south right now, but we're on basically full lockdown. And it was like, what? It was like a concert just got out. There were just people everywhere.
Yeah. Well, yeah, you have to learn pretty quick. And, I think it's important. There was a comment on the Strava's Facebook page and said, how about traffic at trail areas? Because they've got the data. So they could say, all right, well, everybody seems to be going between 9 and 10 a.m. That's when the peak hours are at this bike path. And that'd be really useful information. As you know, no one wants to ride when it's raining out. So any places like that are common trailheads, I'm not going to go to during, a sunny mid morning. Like it's just overrun, or not overrun, but, pretty busy. And right now it's not too hard to spread out if you just go at the right time. I'm sure if you're out at like 5 in the morning, you're not going to see anybody. And the same thing if you go to the right places. So, I'll do the bike path spin, like, if it's like a misty Tuesday afternoon or something on the way back into town. But some of the areas too are just, it's fun to just go and seek out new areas. So one of the other things that I'm doing just to kind of keep fans engaged, kind of keep the canyon, love out there is doing some contests. And so I've got this really cool contest with Ride with GPS. And you can also do it on Strava or even Trailforks. Doesn't matter what platform you use, but it's a route planning contest. And it doesn't need to be like, the most amazing route ever. It's just a random drawing. I'm going to draw 2 prize boxes. One of the prize boxes is going to have one of my custom autographed monogram jerseys from Cutaway. So I'm the only person in the world that has this jersey. It's got the stars and stripes on the sleeve. Should be pretty cool, a little collector's item. Some Canyon hat, Canyon t-shirt, stickers. So I have 2 swag boxes. One will be like, some stock Canyon swag. I also have some of my autograph posters.
Nice.
I'll get that to number.
It's getting the face. It just won't do the whole. There it goes. But
that's funny how it does that. How's it do that? There we go. There we go. You can kind of see the sponsors on there. Yeah. And I'll have something else surprising in there too. I'm not gonna spoil it, but I've got another little trinket in there. But you'll just have to see it when it shows up for whoever wins this thing. Anyway, so I'm gonna draw that on April 18th. Submissions in by the 15th. And the idea is roads less traveled. So it could be a road or trail that, a way to link things that no one's done before. So if you live in an urban area, maybe there's abandoned railroad track that about, but a lot of people don't ride. And, you'd link in 2 trail areas, and then you come back through under a tunnel, big crazy figure 8. But it's a new route, right? So the idea is it's not about, going crazy with it. It could be a 12-mile route, but just a really unique couple features or a unique composition. So it's like, a fun lockdown project, like, man.
I'm in Detroit. I feel like I'm going to get mugged trying to make this route.
Detroit, I bet you could make some of the coolest urban assault rides. Like, I mean, old, like
the old Packard facility. And
I bet the kind of stuff. I mean, you could probably cobble together some crazy stairs, some loading docks. I mean, add some pictures to it. It'd be awesome.
I have a feeling I know what I'm doing this afternoon, because it is here in Michigan. It is a beautiful day, and as soon as I get out of here, I'm gonna get up and go hop on the bike.
Yeah, I was a courier for one winter, and I just love like the graffiti and like the these abandoned urban spaces are really cool to ride. They're really actually pretty fun to check out.
Detroit street art is pretty amazing right now.
Yeah, I bet it's pretty rad.
So I think I think the main I'm losing a word, but what I keep hearing is, I don't want to downplay how hard this is on people, this lockdown, and people that are really having a tough time, but it's forcing all of us. It's forcing you. It's forcing everyone to be a little more creative. And then through that creativity, we can actually come up with some pretty fantastic new things that I hope will continue when we're outside of this, and that creativity will just keep moving, Yeah,
I hope so. I think there's so much positive energy. People are, creative in how they reach each other. And, even just in our conversation, I was thinking, how cool would it be to put together some training videos for some of the NICA kids? These kids are at home and they're either on YouTube, or playing video games. They could be doing some really cool drills and bike games. And that would not be too hard for me to put together. Like, it'd be really fun to share some of the stuff that I think is helps gamify training. I like to not even call it training sometimes. Like, the stuff that I do is really just it's like bike practice. It's doing fun stuff on the wobble board. It's doing braking drills in the grass. And so sharing that would be super fun. So easy to do too.
Well, obviously we can probably talk to you for hours, but we don't want to take up much more of your time. But I do have a very important question. We covered coffee, but I think we should close with maybe what is your two questions, I guess, but they're related. Your go-to beer after a race, and then your go-to beer as you're just like winding down at the house.
I would say those are two different beers. So you mean my go-to beer right after a ride?
Right after a ride, yeah.
Man.
Anything that's put in your face?
High Life.
Nice.
It's more like a water beer,
Uh-huh.
I think Stella is also like, that's kind of like the European Miller High Life. It's like it's a sudsy, low alcohol beer. You won't completely fall over and get knocked on your ass. And then my go-to beer, at least this week, has been Little Hellion by Brothers Craft Brewing in Harrisonburg.
Okay.
As a couple of them, they actually ride bikes, but they sponsor the Alpine Loop Gran Fondo. But that's not exactly why I mentioned them. I mentioned it because they're just really, really good brewers, and they have just a real eclectic mix of different styles of beer, and they're really into the craft of it. Also like Troganator, that one's really good. It all just kind of depends on where I am.
Sure.
Like Bell's, if I'm in the Midwest doing a race, of course, it has to happen. And if I'm in Pennsylvania, some of those beers have to, get their play time. And but it's really great to have some good local breweries in Harrisonburg. We've got quite a few in Virginia, and Brothers, check them out. Really, really good beer.
Well,
double.
On the subject of consumables, Trevor shames me all the time, and the first time you and I ever interacted on social media was about baby food, and Trevor does not get the baby food. And
those baby food packets, I don't understand it. Do you actually use those baby food packets as as your nutrition on a ride?
I'm not gonna lie. I'm gonna tell the entire truth. That's another good thing, Trevor, is this whole like coronavirus thing. Like, I will just tell you like it is. I'm a little less bashful to be myself, and I will open up a little bit.
Good.
I think that is so funny you brought that up, Sheldon. I never had considered baby food before that moment of desperation when I ran out of food at Margie. I was ready to eat mud. And I mean, but that's like all there was, I mean, I was like, hey, I got some Skittles and I think he said he had baby food. And the other thing was really, really unappealing, like some carrots, like 1 calorie per carrot, And so I tried the baby food and I was like, damn, whoa, this is good. It's like apple sauce, man, apple cinnamon. And so I actually eat these, like, I steal some of my kids. They've got these little yogurt packets, which I really like. So it's actually stuck with me a little bit, and it makes a lot of sense. All these things are packages. They're really easy to eat. They're like usually, milled up or really hydrated.
Yeah.
It's kind of funny. Some of that stuff sticks with you. And I like to shake it up a bit, sometimes Brian Vaughn with Goo will send me some stuff. I've been checking out some this stuff called Flow formulas, which is like this. He sent me some samples, really pretty good stuff. A nice thing about not actually having a quote unquote sponsor is I get to eat what I want, which is important when you ride your bike this damn much, to be able to have some variety. And boys and girls out there, make sure you try the baby food. It's awesome.
Yes.
Um,
Thank
yeah, okay, whatever. I'll try it. So, and you did mention the Fondo. Do you want to tell us a little bit about your Fondo and what's just about the Fondo, and then?
Oh, totally. So I was trying to think if I had the poster in here. Yeah, the Alpine Loop Gran Fondo. This is the 10th year we've had this thing, and yeah, it is sort of like a celebration. Usually a celebration at the end of the season. If we have it this year, it'll be the celebration of the year. Just ride bike outside with a group of people. But the Alpine Loop Gran Fondo has been going on now. This would be year number 10, and it's 100 plus miles. It's one of my toughest road training routes. So the gravel that we have in this thing it's a little bit more like state maintained dirt roads, so you don't need like a full suspension gravel bike with 2.0 tires. It's totally like traditional, drop bar mayhem. And, but it's just so cool because you start in the city, we've got this small college town or, college. It's a small city, basically 50,000 people. And then you get out into the countryside, the Mennonite countryside of the Shenandoah Valley. It's this bucolic, green, open countryside. And then you get up over to Shenandoah Mountain, which is like this giant, this wall of a climb. This climb is to go outbound takes most people about 25 minutes, and then the climb on the way back is a little bit more like 35 minutes.
Nice.
To get back over. But once you get over, you're into wild and wonderful West Virginia. I mean, it's just like remote. There are log cabins, forest, deer, bear. It's a magical place out there. I love riding in West Virginia. It's really something. And one of the few places on the East Coast where the population is less than in the late 1800s. Wow. So, it's wild, man. Real escape. And then you climb back up into Virginia. We have time segments on the climbs, which I think is really special about our event. So it's not a race from start to finish. Like before 2 years ago, I'd never done another Gran Fondo, which is kind of funny because you run a Gran Fondo, right? Well, my wife actually runs it, but I kind of came up with it. And so what we created was what, in my imagination, I thought would be a Gran Fondo, right? Well, it turns out the other big American Gran Fondos aren't as cool as I thought they were supposed to be in my mind, as far as like, okay, a Gran Fondo is an Italian cycling event that is a festive event. It's about being social. It's about a big challenge. Gran Fondo means great challenge. And it's about doing something with your buddies and going out and like knocking out some monster route. And then you high five, you have beer afterward, you have good food, music. And so that's kind of what we put together in the absence of going to another event. And I'm so glad that I didn't like go do some research and try Levi's Gran Fondo first, or, an Italian Gran Fondo first. So what we came up with was that if we do time sections, then you can ride as hard as you want. So Ben King and Eddie Anderson and Ben Wright and myself and a lot of the other age group contenders can smash the hell out of each other on the KOM sections. And then on the other side, we stop at the aid stations and hang out. And one year, Ben, he found a football. And he's like, Bishop, go long. And I'm like, okay. And we're like passing the football back and forth. And, it was just hilarious. People were like pulling out their cameras. They thought it was like the funniest thing ever. But I mean, that's what we do. I mean, it takes.
When do you usually host this?
September 28th, I believe. AlpineLoopGranFondo.com.
Okay.
Yeah, check it out. And the other cool thing that like Trevor was talking about, we have some really cool new tools. So I'm going to do some training rides for the Alpine Loop Gran Fondo on Zwift. So we have people from Toronto coming, Miami. We've had people from Europe come, but these people can't really make it to the training camp. We hold one training camp. I mean, that's all I have time for usually is like one weekend in late September. But man, on Zwift, it could be like, all right, first Monday of every month, we're going to do, a 100K ride with, 6,000 feet of climbing on Zwift. We're going to talk about some nutrition, talk about some training tips or whatever on there. So there's all kinds of cool new tools now, and it's kind of forcing us to use them. So kind of a neat thing. And the other thing I was going to say about the Alpine Loop Gran Fondo is we've got a couple cool shout outs to the charities. So we support Prostate Cancer Awareness Project. So that's the big recipient of most of the fundraising. So the other recipient of our fundraising efforts is we support Shenandoah Valley Bicycle Coalition. So all the proceeds from the beer garden go to SVBC, and they are like a powerhouse local club, over 1,000 members. We're building trails, creating bike paths, bike lanes, and it's expanding constantly. It's a really cool crew.
Good. And then were there a couple other sponsors that you were gonna?
Oh yeah. We've been long time associated with Porsche. So they do our lead out vehicles. It's super cool. We've got some loaner cars for the weekend. I tell you what, I really wish I wasn't so busy like loading and unloading, all of our stuff. We also have US Foods. So the loading and unloading is, tons of croissants. We go real Euro with the, food as well. So we've got Pellegrino instead of like, we've got Belgian waffles. We've got Pellegrino. We've got really nice
Italian baby food.
Jams, Italian baby food. I usually have some really good cheeses and fruit, and we really shake it up. And then we also have a coffee sponsor, and so it's really cool. Chestnut Ridge Roasters from Harrisonburg. They have a espresso station out there in the middle of nowhere in West Virginia.
Nice.
It's probably not an espresso machine for 60 miles in any direction, but these guys bring it out there to a local park and hook it up. And so the Fraser brothers with Fraser Quarry host this. They also own the coffee company, and man, it's so cool. We even put together like this Fondo Fizz. So check out the Vegan Cyclist episode on Alpine Loop Gran Fondo if you really want to know the full story on it, because it's really a fun time. We have a blast.
I'll have to post a link to that to our to the podcast page.
Yeah, for sure.
It's super fun. Like it's a lot of party, a lot of hanging out, and one bike ride. So
then our final, I keep saying our final question, but one more question. Is there like a quick little bit of dirt that you can give us on Mark Krantz before we close up here?
Yeah, Mark Krantz, he is a enigma. He's got a ton of talent, and if he just keeps it consistent, like the world is his. Like he'll just be smashing it. He came down here to train with me, and like I would ride 4 hours, he would ride 5 hours. I would do 2 hours of intervals, and he would do 3 hours.
Oh, jeez.
So yeah, Mark's super talented, great guy. I really love hanging out with him. We've had him at our house over for dinner a bunch of times. He eats a lot. The boy will put back some food. We make some dinners, and then he's like seconds, and then there's dessert.
Are you feeding him SpaghettiOs?
Should be feeding him SpaghettiOs. No, it's no, but he's a great guy and super. He's very, very fit. He definitely been smashing pretty good. He put me in a hurt locker a couple times.
Oh, he and Trevor went out and he stole a couple of Trevor's KOMs.
Yeah, what a jerk. What a jerk. Stole my KOMs. But
that's all right. All you got to do is you just have to sit on his wheel and kind of play the mind games. Tell him
You
you're
make,
going to
you make that sound so easy for us.
Yeah. If I can't sit on his wheel, that's a little that's tough. Well, anyways, Jeremiah, man, we thank you so much for your time. It's been cool to talk to you right now, and for us to get a little bit of motivation, and we need everything we can get right now, and then to be able to share this to everyone, and hopefully they'll get something out of it too. So very cool, man.
I like to think that, it's not always easy. Like, I'm not super motivated right now either. Like, it's honest truth. The situation is tough, but it's also one we're in together. We're all kind of in this together, and we're all, kind of dealing with it. So, my words to everybody out there is that find your rhythm. And so if your rhythm is only 75% of normal, that's fine. Don't beat yourself up about that. Do 3 days a week of quality, and then the rest, doesn't matter. Just roll with how you feel. But if you keep yourself honest to like that 3 days a week, you'll come out of this and you'll be like, I feel in shape, but I've also recharged my batteries. Like, this is not a bad recharge. This is just like one of those things that happens, and you have to just roll with it. Don't fight it too much. Roll with it.
Yeah.
Sure.
All right. So we haven't done this on the Skype yet, but I don't know if you've listened to the podcast, but we kind of have a closing thing that we do where Trevor says, keep your chain clean. I say, keep your chain dirty. And then we say, we'll see you in the mid-pack. Would you like to do the we'll see you in the mid-pack part, even though...
Hold on. I
don't think he's seen the mid-pack in a long time.
I think Jeremiah should say, get your chain dirty. I feel like that's more of a Jeremiah thing. So
thank you. Thank you.
So I'll say, keep your chain clean, and you say, get your chain dirty, and then Sheldon will say, see you in the mid-pack. Does that sound okay?
Okay.
And as always, keep your chain clean.
Get your chain dirty.
We'll see you in the mid-pack.
Beautiful. Thank you, Jeremiah. This was awesome.
Yep. We'll do it again. All right, see you guys.
See you, Jeremiah.